I will just make a couple of general comments first, and then I will share my screen because I actually have a few slides that I will put together for everybody and try to keep an eye on not only the time, but also the question and answer box. I'm not sure if somebody's going to be moderating that or not. And I hope, okay, great. So somebody at the board is going to watch the Q&A box. That's fabulous. For those of you who don't know me, I am Ann Petit. I'm the superintendent of the Division of Real Estate and Professional Licensing. And as you can see, I'm in the office, and I'll talk a little bit about that toward the end of our time together. However, I'd like to get started with a few slides here, and I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure out if I can see the rest of you who have video on, and maybe we can work on that. But what I'm going to do is share my screen and start a pretty brief PowerPoint presentation, and at the same time try to keep an eye on what you may have questions. Don't hold back on your questions. Please send them through, and we'll do our best to address those as we move through. And the only reason that I'm a little off on my game is I'm not used to seeing myself while I'm talking and not seeing the rest of you. I'm sure that like you are looking forward to being able to truly interact, not only with each other, but really get out there and interact with your clients. And thanks, Mike, for letting me know that this is in a webinar setup. So that is the issue here. So what I'm going to do is start the PowerPoint presentation, and maybe this isn't going to work so well so I need the host to please enable my screen sharing, if you will, please. I know that there's a lot of trepidation about being able to share screens from participants, but there we go. Thank you. Thanks, guys. All right, so I think that what you should be able to see now is at least the title slide, so we can get by that. I'm going to go by this slide. The Division of Real Estate and Professional Licensing, most of you probably already know, but it's impactful when you see the visual of the fact that this one division, with only currently 39 staff members, myself included, have 7 programs for which we are responsible, and that includes 2 boards and 2 commissions. So just usually show this at the beginning, and some of you have seen it before when I've been with you at Ohio Realtors or at local boards. So the next thing that I normally do is share with you, those of you who don't know all of your commissioners, give you a look at who is currently on the Ohio Real Estate Commission. And most unfortunately, right now, we have a broker member vacancy, and we also have our public member seat vacant currently. And so Governor DeWine's staff is trying to work on that amongst everything else, or so admittedly, it is difficult to find someone right now to take especially the consumer seat. So if you know of anybody, please have them reach out to me, and I can contact the governor's office with their information and connect the two. So let's talk for just a moment. Let's bring you up to speed a little bit on the home inspector program. Ohio Realtors, Peg and Lori especially, have done a great job of keeping you up to speed on what's going on. And I just want to share with you just a brief update. As you can see, there were a lot of missed deadlines, a lot of delayed deadlines because of delays in appointments to this board. But the one that I'd like to focus on today is when enforcement of the home inspector program will begin. And there's a real problem because we are unable to enforce the requirements of having a license and any of the underlying details that go with that because we don't have rules adopted yet. The board has adopted rules. However, 3 days before our scheduled hearing in front of the Joint Committee on Agency Rule Review, which is the last legislative step before the rules are actually in place and enforceable, that's when the COVID shutdown hit. So we were unable to have that hearing. And we are working with ACAR, is what they're called, to get that rescheduled. So the issue here is that while enforcement was scheduled to begin in November, and then rescheduled, as you all may know, for April 5th, because we pushed everything back based on the last appointment to the board. Now, and that's why I put who knows upside down, because everything has been stood on its head, so to speak, and we are awaiting word of when we can get the ACAR hearing rescheduled. I bring this up specifically to reinforce the fact that no home inspector has to have a license with the division right now in order to do a home inspection in Ohio. I've heard a lot of stories, especially from certain regions, where home inspectors who were not able to qualify under the grandfathering clause have basically been shut out of employment because they do not have a grandfathered license with the division. Please know that anyone right now is still legally permitted to take on home inspections. And I'm trying to see real quickly. No Q&A yet. Awesome. All right. So one of the things that Mike and Teresa asked me to address are what are some of the issues, what are some of the complaints that the division is seeing that the commission has had in front of them. And it's interesting that by and large, for the last couple of or 3 years, this top 12 hasn't really changed. Where the complaint type falls in the top 12 may have changed a little bit. And there's one brand new top number 1 that I'll cover here in a minute. But let's talk a few minutes about the other 11. So we see fairly frequently the misuse, not so much a misappropriation, thankfully, and I think that that's very good to note that it's not necessarily a fact that a broker, principal broker, management level folks, or anybody else who has ownership or control of a trust account is misusing the funds as much as it's just not a compliant trust account. And by and large, we see commingling of funds for property management and earnest money and operating accounts. That's not permitted. And so if anybody has any questions about that, we'd sure love to talk to you about that. I will be sharing the slide presentation, just for a note, sharing the slide presentation with the board staff right after we are finished here, so that you will be able to have it and keep it and use it for staff meetings, affiliate meetings, however you want to use it. We will be sending it in a PDF form so that you can actually run it as your own slideshow if you wish, or print it. So absolutely. Licensees allowing unlicensed activity. So the reason that just generally says licensees is because we have had quite a few complaints and quite a few instances in where, with a different complaint entirely, we have uncovered that a team leader, that someone who is a salesperson in a brokerage is allowing an unlicensed assistant, or somebody who's not even technically with, and when I say with, employed by or affiliated with that real estate company, to do things that require a license, like opening a home and taking listings. And now remember, they can hold a house open for you, but they can't do any of the things that are enumerated in 4731.35.01. Not reporting convictions timely or at all. So the statute says that within 15 days of being convicted, excuse me, final adjudication of a charge, if it's a felony, you must let us know. You must let us know in writing, and it's okay to send email. One of my staff attorneys will be, or enforcement chief will be in touch and get details from you. But you must let us know. And it's really important, brokers and management level folks, to make sure that all of your affiliates understand that, because that's one of the quickest ways for somebody to get suspended and ultimately, perhaps, depending on the egregiousness of the felony, to lose a license. And nobody wants that. Misdemeanors do not have to be reported if you are already licensed. And the reason that I emphasize that is because I think that there's a misunderstanding amongst folks who are recruiting new salespeople, that misdemeanors don't have to be included in explanations and disclosure on a sales application. They absolutely do. If a salesperson is applying to transfer, any of the forms that ask if you have ever, or since your last renewal, have you, misdemeanors are included, and that includes OVIs, DUIs. So I think that there's some misunderstanding about that out there, and it's causing a little bit of delay, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit with your new sales applications. Not maintaining complete files. Remember, 3 years and everything. And I know some of you have heard me say this multiple times, and you may have heard it if you've attended a commission meeting, certainly. And complete files include text messages. Complete files include emails. And I always emphasize that making sure that you have all of those types of communications may actually save you down the road if somebody complains about you to us. So make sure that you've got those. Improper representation in family situations. This happens often in divorces, but we have seen a lot of instances lately where there's a probate issue and there are multiple folks, whether they be siblings, in-laws, cousins, whatever. The grandparents have both deceased now. They've left the property to their group of grandkids, and if there's more than one of them involved, they can't agree on most anything. and I'm sure that you've dealt with that. So just make sure that you're including everybody who has an ownership interest, that you're checking title to that property to ensure that you are, and in instances of domestic separation or dissolution, divorce, that you get everybody's signature. And I will say that recently we had a case where someone was getting a divorce, and our licensee permitted one of the spouses to sign for the other spouse. If they're going through an estrangement of any sort, that's probably not going to go over well with the one who didn't actually have a chance to sign the documents. So that's almost always going to result in a complaint, and a very angry one at that. No written consent to contractual changes. Just a reminder that addenda have to be dated and at least initialed by all parties. If not signed, we suggest signed by all parties. And that if you're getting into too much detail on any contractual changes or addenda, that you make sure that you talk to an attorney about drafting those, so that again, something goes sideways, or another licensee sees that you may be tiptoeing toward the line of the unlicensed practice of law, that we don't get a complaint on that, because we will in turn have to send that to the Supreme Court and the State Bar Association for their evaluation. So we don't want that for anyone either. Not disclosing material facts. It is an allegation very often. Thankfully, the majority of you as Ohio licensees know how to make certain that if you are aware, if you have knowledge, that you're making that known. As a matter of fact, we've had a few complaints from sellers against their listing agent for disclosing a material fact, and that is a complaint that very quickly gets closed, and usually with a nicely done from me, because you are fulfilling your obligation to making sure that you are not hiding, for lack of a better term, any material facts that may come back and haunt you later, or the buyers. So not presenting all offers or not presenting them timely. This one has really picked up, and I'm sure that's not going to be any surprise to any of you who are with us today, because of the continued multiple offer, the scramble for a very low inventory, especially in particular segments of the market. I would be shocked if any of you told me that you've not dealt with this lately. I haven't heard in the last month or so that we're having just curbside offers, but I also do know that we have buyers who are agreeing to foregoing any home inspection or other inspections. And I'll just tell you that I am crossing my fingers and holding my breath that we don't get inundated with complaints later about I didn't have a home inspection. So continue to encourage your clients, your buyer clients, to have a home inspection, and I think that will represent you very well. One of the things that has helped in situations where we have these complaints of not getting all offers or timely offers is to make sure that your sellers are on board, and that you can notate their lawful instruction to either don't bring us anything under X, or just line up backup offers at this point, but we don't want to necessarily see them. So that is one thing that we would suggest. So yes, I'm sure you do hear complaints a lot on that number 5, not presenting all of the offers. So again, I just encourage you to make sure that you are documenting what you are doing and what your seller's instructions are. I was just looking at a question, and we're going to get to wholesaling here in just a few minutes. Hi, Jackie. I'm sorry I can't see you, but thanks for the question on improper representation of a party. So if a husband's been appointed as a trustee, does his wife need to sign any of the docs related to the trust because of dower? We would say you need to talk to an attorney to get clear answers on that, but we will always tell you to err on the side of caution. And if the spouse is able to sign, if there's a reason that other spouse has been named power of attorney, make sure that the POA is specific to the purchase or sale, rental, or any type of activity with their real property. And then make sure that if it is in a trust, because of dower, we are still a dower state, although you're probably aware that there was a bill that was introduced to try to do away with dower. I can't see that that's going to happen at all. So Jackie then said, similarly, when there are numerous family members in a trust where property is being sold, is it necessary to communicate info to all of them, or is it sufficient to communicate with just the trustee? Again, err on the side of caution. However, it really depends on what those trust documents say. Again, we're not going to give you the legal advice, but make sure that if it says that this trustee is able to handle all of the real property transactions, make sure that you have a copy of that. I would still encourage you to communicate with the other members of the trust. And listen, we've gotten complaints where there are siblings or other family members in particular scattered all over the United States, if not the globe. And yet, if they have an ownership interest, you must have them sign, and you must have them informed as to what's going on with that property. Again, with a trust, I would go back to the trust documents and double check with your attorney to see whether or not it's okay to just deal with that particular trustee. There's a reason that they put it in trust, and it's very likely that they will have foreseen the need to count on that trustee. We've had these complaints, and we get the complaint from one of the members of the trust who's not happy with the way the trustee participated in or handled a sale in particular. And if we go back to the trust documents during our investigation and see that everybody has signed off to allow that trustee to handle everything and sign on their behalf if a sale, a listing, a sale is imminent, then there's no standing for that complaint. I will say that. So again, everything hinges on what that trustee is given as far as responsibility, duties, and powers. Are you finding any or many listing agents having the seller sign the agency disclosure form to verify that the offer has been presented? We have seen that a few times, and it's probably a very good idea. Whatever you can do, again, to document and show that you have presented that in accordance with, again, lawful instructions. And if your sellers say, we're holding right here, we don't want to see any others right now, that's fine. Just make sure that you have that instruction in writing that you can add to your file. All right, brokers signing blank forms. Oh, what a headache. And we'll, this ties in a little bit with a couple of other things that I'm going to talk about, so I'm not going to stop here for too long, but I will say, brokers, whether you're management level or principal brokers, do not sign any applications, any transfers before the applicant does. There's a reason that you're attesting to the fact that everything on that form is true and verifiable. We have become aware of a couple of brokerages where the principal broker has a stack at the manager's desks of pre-signed sales applications. And if we find out that that's the fact, then we will be having some serious talks. Here's why. What happens 9 times out of 10 is then a recruit for an affiliated license with your brokerage takes that application and fills it out, but doesn't fill it out completely, and or they check yes, especially to the 6th ethical background question about criminal convictions, and we follow up with you to see what you think about this, and you're caught unawares because you did not see that application after it was completed. The other reason that this is important is because, believe it or not, we have had a few applicants who have altered what you have signed. So, and we've had a few applicants actually sign the broker's signature. And I'm pretty sure that there are more than Jackie Casera falling off their chairs right now when they hear that, but it has happened. And the broker, again, was caught unawares. So don't keep pre-typed with your name or completely signed applications anywhere. It's just a really bad idea. Allowing unsupervised, unlicensed access to properties. I'm not sure how many more times we have to talk about this one, but it continues to happen. I will tell you that if you're not already aware, the going rate on discipline from the commission is 15 or 10 days. More if it's more egregious and there are other things involved, but for this particular activity, it's at least 10 to 15 days of bench warming and an additional education and a fairly stiff fine. So we don't want to see anybody do that. We had questions about opening a property and standing outside and letting clients, potential buyers, go through the property on their own while you stand outside or are in your vehicle. That's not going to work either. I'm pretty sure, based on what I've seen, that there are all sorts of technological creativities, innovations out there that you're using to show homes and to make sure that you and your clients are staying safe. And I do want to say that what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, by and large, is very encouraging, and I'm really proud of real estate licensees for how well the majority of you have been taking care of someone else's home when you take a client, and taking care of your clients and yourself too, when you're going through homes. So you are to be congratulated on that if you're taking all of those necessary steps. And if you're not, I encourage you to rethink how you are showing homes. Salespersons operating outside of the brokerage. The worst case scenario is that is happening with the knowledge, if not also the blessing, of a principal broker or a management level licensee. That is not good. That is not good at all. And it needs to stop. Salespeople may not run a property management or any other type of business that includes activity that requires a license under 4735.01 outside of the confines of the brokerage. So if you need help getting that across to any of your licensees, just let us know. I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing any questions here. So the next thing that I want to share with you is, drum roll please, number 1 right now. Oops. Not sure why I can't. There we go. I might have to do that. Deficient applications. I want to tell you a little story about the first month and a half to 2 months, almost 3 months maybe, of our COVID shutdown, when not only Division Counsel Kim Wells, but also I myself was opening mail and helping to log mail that came in. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I was apoplectic, to use a really big term, when I saw the condition of especially new sales applications, but also transfer reactivation applications. The shape that those were coming in was abysmal. Now, taking into account that we were at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and that we were dealing with, all of us, you certainly were dealing with uncertainties, myriad uncertainties, not knowing how you were going to handle the listings, the showings, buyer clients, seller clients, how you were going to make a living in the immediate future. So I take into full account a lot of stress on the behalf of an awful lot of people. Also, the folks who have been applying, many of them may have lost other employment and are trying to see where a career in real estate may take them. So that aside, and that taken into full consideration, part of the problem that I need to share with you is that every deficiency that came in had to be put into the imaging system for my staff teleworking to deal with. And every deficiency takes 4 to 5 times as long, as much energy, as much work and attention as a fully complete, accurate application. So what was happening was all of this time's being spent communicating with the folks who have deficient applications, and we have all of these applications that are complete and accurate, and we can't get to them. So these people are calling to say what's going on. Plus now we have the criminal history checks, and BCI and the FBI weren't doing fingerprints for a while. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that, but I cannot stress enough, if you, during this period of time, can have one person or a couple people, if you have a ton of new applicants, if you can have one person just be your touchstone for those applications before they are sent to us, I think that that would be very beneficial to you, to your applicant, and certainly will help us help them and get them up and ready to take the exam much more quickly. So, so Nancy, I would have guessed that you were going to ask that question. So I want to do a live newsletter. We were going to do that in mid-July. We are now looking at mid-August, and as far as the newsletter disciplinary actions, we need to get those typed up and up on the website. Again, we are most concerned about keeping business flowing to the best of our ability as quickly as possible. So we want to get that together and out to you, but also be on the lookout for, and we're trying to figure out a way, a good way of making sure that we can give CE to anybody who tunes in for the virtual or live newsletter. So stay tuned for that. And Nancy, I know that a lot of you use the disciplinary items as a great teaching tool. I use it myself when I'm out with some of you doing core law. So absolutely be on the lookout for that. So there we are. Okay, sorry, having a bit of technical difficulty with moving the pages along. All right, so let's talk real quickly about some common inquiries. And these come into licensing, these come into enforcement, these come into legal. New brokers, brokerages, what you can and can't do, how you should set up that second or third company, additional doing business as or fictitious names. Kathy Clark is the wizard on those of you who have dealt with her. She is actually taking a new broker or an existing broker's hand and walking them through that. We highly recommend that you include in the conversation before you reach out to us an attorney in Ohio who is conversant in real estate license law, if you can. But we are here to answer your questions, help you understand which form needs to go when. And as you probably all have heard me say before, just make sure if you're going to set up an additional affiliated brokerage or a DBA that you don't file it with the Secretary of State's office first. File it here first as a name reservation so that we can make sure that it is a name that's available for you to use before you spend a lot more money at the Secretary of State's office. So licensees seeking guidance on all of the rules and laws, especially, and I'll just skip down to the last one, especially on advertising. And we are happy to entertain and address those questions. We would much prefer to do that ahead of time rather than get complaints because y'all know that either you're out seeing somebody else's advertising that isn't quite in compliance, or you're getting complaints about somebody in your shop's advertising. So if we can address those ahead of time, if you as a broker manager want us to look at something that one of your folks is proposing to do, we have done that a lot for others as well, and we are happy to help you in that regard. Client and licensee communication. There are a lot of questions that we get on, may I reach out and talk to this person, or how should I respond to this request from my client? And we're always going to help you walk through the questions of, is it lawful? Is it a lawful request or instruction? Is it your client? Where do you stand on that, and not crossing the sign? So we're happy to talk through those things with you. Ancillary trusteeship. I just want to say very quickly that if you are the only broker, so therefore principal broker, or if you are one of the few folks who still has a sole proprietorship, you may want to talk to your legal and financial professionals to see if it isn't advisable for you to include somebody else in the brokerage as even an associate broker at this point in time, rather than you being the only one, because heaven forbid it ever happens, but if, let's say, somebody ends up in ICU for weeks and weeks and is the only principal broker, we're in a tough spot. So we just always would encourage you, you don't have to make them another principal broker, but if you already have another broker in the office who can be elevated, or if you've got a management level broker in the office, or if you have a management level salesperson who can, who I can recommend to the courts be the ancillary trustee, then we can work with that. I wanted to say to you that we also have been working and want to continue to work with Ohio Realtors on addressing more situations that are becoming, unfortunately, more common, where there is a temporary need for a broker, an ancillary trusteeship, rather than one where that trustee has to shut down the brokerage. And I think COVID has shown us that this is unfortunately an example that can be used in the arguments for such a temporary trusteeship. Wholesaling. So don't know what you can do about all of the emails that you're being bombarded with of wholesalers, other than telling them to knock it off and unsubscribe. So I want to talk for a minute here about wholesaling. Perfect timing, and we're starting to run a little short on time, so I want to get through this, but I want to remind everybody that if it's done properly, wholesaling in Ohio is legal. And there are two different situations that we're seeing, and I want to talk to each of those for a moment. One is they're not doing it right because they are advertising the actual property, meaning the address, the picture of the home, the description of the home, almost as if you were pulling the information off of the MLS. That's not okay. In Ohio, under contract law, you may only advertise the contract and the valuable consideration that you have in that contract. So I have seen, and I want to thank somebody who I'm sure is on this call, who has forwarded some of the advertisements and emails that you've been getting. And there's one that says for *****, and then it's got the actual street name, and it's got a picture of what I would presume to be the actual property. No, that is not okay, and we are dealing with that. Know that in most cases, because this is so prolific, again, we are dealing with it by contacting the person responsible and issuing a cease and desist letter, and then taking it up as unlicensed activity if it happens again, or if it continues to happen. I have included, and you'll have this here, but here is the link to our YouTube video that we did some time ago, but the information is still accurate, it's still valid, and feel free to send it in response to the emails that you are getting, and tell them that if they are advertising the actual property, then they are in violation of Ohio real estate license law. Again, I don't know what you do about those emails other than unsubscribing. It's like trying to get rid of all of the robocalls that you get. I got one a week or so ago calling me, I think it was Dale, and asking if I was still interested in this piece of property on Chestnut Street where we live, and there is no such address. And so, I mean, we try to track these down, but they just keep moving, and it's kind of impossible. The other situation I want to address with you on wholesaling is where there is apparent predatory activity, and there may be criminal activity, and we want you to make sure that you are sending that to local law enforcement and us, because if you include both of us on that information, we find it easier, first and foremost, to get local law enforcement to pay some attention to it, and also we can cooperate and help them understand exactly what's going on in those situations. So please do help us with that. Just a real quick note on management level. Well, let me go back again. Thank you. Somebody just asked a 30-second explanation of what wholesaling is. Wholesaling is when you suppose to take a valuable consideration in a property, and you attempt to find an end buyer when you are not the lawful owner at that point in time. Wholesaling is offering to purchase that property, usually in distress. Either the property is in distress and or the current owner is in distress, and you get a contract signed by that current owner that says that they will sell it to you and that you have full right to market the property to someone else. Valuable consideration would be you've got skin in the game. You've got skin in the game, and that would be usually monetary. And then also, it means that you are selling a contract to buy that property. You are not acting as if you are the owner. If you don't hold the deed title to that property, then you may not advertise the property itself unless you are a real estate licensee. All right, real quickly on management level licensees. Just a reminder that management level licensees are great. They still do not stand in every instance for a principal broker. And the reason I say that is because we have had principal brokers who are completely unaware of the background of someone who is going to potentially be joining that brokerage. So again, I just want to stress, especially to all of the principal brokers, that having management level licensees does not, now a management level broker, a little bit different, but management level salesperson does not relieve you as a principal broker from your responsibilities, and you have to actively oversee the brokerage. So that's something that we've been seeing a lot of lately again, things getting signed by someone. And the worst part is you make somebody a management level licensee in name only. That is not allowed. You have to file the designation with the division to make that person recognized by us, by the commission, as a management level licensee. That's really critical. And by the way, they have to be a licensee in order for you to name them as such. Unlicensed persons who are employed by the brokerage or affiliated with the brokerage in some way may not be a management level person and make those kinds of decisions. All right, woohoo. So here we are at the end. COVID realities. And I tell you all of this in the last few minutes together just to give you some information and to help you set some expectations for especially new licensees. They are calling here 4-5 times a week to check on their application, and we find out that some of them haven't even gotten to a live scan vendor to have their fingerprints run. Haven't even done that yet. That's a real problem. Plus, I need you to know that we had to move during the protests when things get unsafe. For the few of us who are coming into the office here on Cap Square, we have to pick everything up and relocate and or telework. Teleworking is working out very, very well for the most part, but sometimes we have issues with technology. I'm sure you've been working from home and had systems go down. Same thing happens to us, and it throws us behind, and we hate it. I also have currently 7.5 vacancies in what is supposed to be only a 45-person office with 7 programs. So, and I will tell you that 2 of those vacancies are in the licensing and education area. One of those is in customer service, who's picking up all those phone calls, and several of them are in the enforcement staff. So we're also dealing with slow or no mail, depending on what kind of protest or impediment to mail pickup and delivery is going on. I know that many of you were distressed when we hit the no walk-ins and that we're still there, but we have to continue right now under the governor's direction. We are one of his executive agencies, and we have to follow the rules that he's put in place, and it's to keep everybody safe. So we're having some processing delays, and let's talk about PSI for just a half a minute, and I know we're almost at the end here, but PSI, the testing vendor, has been doing their level best to take care of everybody in Ohio, not just real estate applicants, but other applicants for other professions for which they administer the examinations. I know that there's been some frustrations. Yes, I do want to hear if a site is not potentially safe. I want to hear when there are potential problems or concerns with the staff at those sites. However, we are hearing that I can't sit for the exam until the middle and now the end of August. That is a reality, and that is a reality about which we can do nothing. It does not help to call and scream and use profanities at my staff. And I will say that I've not ever had that from a broker or a management level person all of these months, and I thank you very much for that. We're getting it from your applicants, and we're getting it from team leaders. That kind of behavior, we try to understand and be empathetic to the stress and the desire to start working as quickly as possible. But I won't tolerate staff being treated like that. And I will tell you that in the last several months, I have picked up the phone and talked to more principal brokers. And I wish I could pick up the phone and talk to a different one of you every day, or management level person, and just have a very nice, cordial, hey, how are you doing conversation. But that doesn't seem to be possible right now. But I will not hesitate to pick up the phone and let a principal broker, first and foremost, know if somebody who is attempting to affiliate with that principal broker is not acting a professional, and we haven't even given them a license yet. So there are fewer exam appointments because they are a business. PSI is a business, and they must adhere to, comply with the Safe Restart Ohio business protocols. So I think if we can set expectations for your licensees, I think that would be extremely helpful. And then we get back to the deficient applications again, and I can't stress to you enough, just another set of eyes perhaps on those. Marking yes, especially on question number 6 about convictions. It doesn't say felony convictions, it says convictions. A DUI, OMVI, reckless op, disorderly conduct, those are not minor traffic violations. And I will tell you that we see it a lot with the younger set of applicants. I also want to make sure that we understand that that there is a need for disclosure of any, no matter how old it is, because trust me, chances are, unless they know that they have had it expunged or sealed, it is going to show up on their criminal history. So have them err on the side of caution, but if they've had it sealed or expunged, the fact that they've had it sealed or expunged and the date that they had it sealed or expunged is plenty. Don't have them explain. The last thing I'll say about that is we ask for an explanation, not just a description of the convictions. I want, the commission wants and needs an actual explanation of what happened. And we expect that to come in. It will hold up the application. We'll have to go back. If they have court documents, that would be very helpful. That would help us speed things along. If they have questions about it, have them please call and talk to one of the attorneys about it first. Or if you have questions about it, please call, talk to me about it, talk to Kim Wells, Division Counsel. And I'm going to say that with 1 minute to go, that is the last slide. And we will get these slides out to you. I'll send them to Mike and Teresa right after we're finished here. But if there are any last minute questions, if you want to send them to me, I will be happy to respond to those. So if I've got another minute, somebody just asked a really, really, really important question. Are license renewals delayed? CE providers submitting course attendees. So anything that you are required to provide to us or file with us is now delayed under House Bill 197, which has delayed everything to either 90 days from the date that Governor DeWine rescinds the emergency order, or December 1st, whichever comes first. We are getting very, very close to December 1st is going to be the answer. If you count on fingers and toes and two other people's fingers and toes, you'll get there on that 90 days. So excuse me, we are getting very close to the December 1st. I do not know whether or not the legislature, especially now, will be able to come together to perhaps consider extending that or having a new bill this fall if we happen to have another huge surge. And I will tell you, regulating our cemeteries in Ohio, we are very, very concerned, and we are part of the emergency operations center and plan. And I would just say, I'm not sure we can let our guard down quite yet. So I don't see any other questions at this point. So I will say farewell. And speaking of well, I hope you all are remaining well. Thank you for everything you're doing to keep the essential nature of real estate and home buying and selling going. And I hope that you all are staying safe and appreciate the time that I got to spend with you, although we don't actually get to see each other. I'm going to hope that that'll happen again at some point. I do have one question about wholesaling that I will prepare an answer to, and I will send that with the slides. Andrea, thank you for that question, and we'll address that. Again, I really, really appreciate your time, being able to share it with you, and don't hesitate to let us know if you've got any follow-up questions, and we'll work on those. Again, stay well, stay safe, and we'll hope to see you all in person before you know it. Oh, somebody just raised their hand. I'm not sure if Mike can see that, if we still have some people here, and I can answer it or not.
No, I don't see that.
Huh, okay. So somebody had just raised their hand. I saw it pop up on my screen, but I don't see it now. So maybe if you can, and hi, Mike, it's nice to hear your voice. So get that question to Mike, and he will pass it on to me, and then we'll put everything together for you, and they'll get it out to everybody. Thanks so much. Hope to see you again soon.